Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. We are so glad to be with you here today. I'm Megan Wood. Obviously, you guys know me. But more importantly, I've got a really cool guy here with me today. His name is Chad Weller. Hey, Chad.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. So, Chad is a high performance coach. He is a former pro athlete and also motivational speaker. Is that everything, Chad? Because I feel like you just got this amazing, distinguished list of what you do.
Yeah, that's good. That'll work.
Perfect. Oh, I'm so glad you're here with me today, Chad. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you taking time.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, guys. So I brought Chad here today because he is, so like I said, he's a high performance coach. I also do high performance coaching. And, sometimes I think we wonder about, what does all that mean? What does it mean to be high performance? And so I wanted Chad to join me here today and to talk a little bit about that. Before we dive too, before we get too deep into all of that, though, I did want to just have you guys hear a little bit more about who Chad is, what his story is, because I had the pleasure of speaking with him the other week and just hearing about his story a little bit. And I think you'd like to hear it too. So Chad, could you just give us a little bit of your background story, where you're coming from, how you became a high performance coach?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Currently, right now, I'm living in Denver, Colorado, originally from Columbus, Ohio. And I got into coaching because of my life experience. My life experience started, growing up and being put on medications and being told and labeled at a very, very young age that I had learning disability, ADD. And, that's when my point of like my true self of like, that's when my pain started basically. And as I kept going through school, I was somebody who was, always faced adversity and challenges within school. Sports was my outlet. Fast forward to after high school, I moved to Miami Beach on a modeling career and I traveled around the world for 8 years modeling and still trying to find out who I was and trying to find out there was just something missing. Even though I was working with the top designers in the world and doing all these amazing things, I still felt disconnected from who I was. And in Miami Beach, I was there for 21 years. And then, after the modeling career, I was in the nightlife. And the nightlife took me down a path where I made some really bad choices. And I hit my rock bottom several times because I was addicted to drugs and alcohol. And that was a really hard time in my life because I thought the drugs and alcohol would cover up some of the things that I had been missing in my life, which was just knowing who I was and really finding my passion. I had no purpose whatsoever, but I was living this like high paced life and lots of celebrities and doing fun things and traveling the world, but still just really, really, really lost. Speed up to 2009. I literally ran into a 50-foot brick wall driving, drinking and driving, and almost lost my life.
Wow.
And that was a life changer for me. I basically told myself, are you going to keep, playing with fire and get burned and not be able to come out on the other side? Like I was very fortunate to come out on the other side of this accident. So I got help, and this is where my whole life just transformed because I made that decision right then and there. I've been sober now 10 and a half years, but I had to do a lot of work. I hired coaches. I went to AA. I did a lot of stuff that was uncomfortable for me. That was not really what I wanted to do, but I knew I had to do it if I wanted to change my life. And as I started going through all this, I started running more. And I'd always been a runner. And I started running ultra marathons, and I ran my first 50K, and I really loved it. I was disconnected from my ego, started finding out spirituality, and just connecting with nature. I was running in the woods and in California, my first race. And then I started finding out I was pretty good at ultra running, and actually became pro and running 100-mile distances around the world. That gave me the platform to go speak with kids and become a motivational speaker. But it all was driven from me hitting rock bottom. And I just tried to commit suicide 3 times prior to my accident, and I was just really depressed, suffering from a lot of anxiety and depression. And I knew that if I could focus on the process of each and every day. And that's really what I had to learn. And when you're running 100 miles, running for 30 hours straight, you have to focus on that process, focus on each step, one step at a time to get to that 100-mile point. And I remember when it come like 20 hours of running still, like, are you almost done? Like, no, I still had 10 more hours of running left in me. So that created that positive mindset, because I had to persevere. I had to find the strength and, you know, to keep going. And that's what really led me into life coaching, was understanding that, man, the human body can go through so much, and the mind can transform and take the body through so much. So I started learning how the mind and body work through running these amazing races all over the world. And then I hired a life coach, you know, many years ago, and that really opened up the doors for me to be like, wow, there's something really important here that I'm discovering within myself. And we started doing deep work. And that's what really led me into becoming a high performance coach. And I've always wanted to help people. I truly believe that we're all here to help one another as humans, and in one way or another. And then I started working with a lot of charities, and I started really believing that, you know, moving forward, you have to pay it back, right, in order to move forward. And that was just really a launching pad for me in my career, and then being able to speak. So that's where I am now today. And I'm a high performance coach, and you know, I work with individuals. I do motivational speaking in groups and corporations, and you know, it takes work every single day. And that's why I really fell in love with the high performance piece, because I hold myself accountable each and every day to taking it to the next level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I listened to your story again, you know, because I remember you were telling about it the other week, and it struck me again, Chad. You know, I think it's interesting, your life experiences, you know, how you were on one trajectory, you know, going through life, you know, in a certain way, and you literally ran into a brick wall. I think it's interesting sometimes how those things happen in our lives, you know, things like physically happen that kind of mirror what's going on the inside. You know, obviously it was time for a change, and you made it. And so I think it's really cool how you've taken something, you know, some really difficult experiences, and are using it to help other people navigate those things. And so I feel like that kind of helps describe and give some idea of, you know, the importance of the work you're doing, and kind of like lets people know, oh yeah, like that's kind of what it's about, is making those life transitions. And you've definitely made some life transitions. And so, you know, it's awesome to have you here today. So one of the things I wanted to discuss on here, and I thought it would be really helpful for our audience here, you know, just so they could hear some more about it. What does high performance mean? You know, I think it's cool how at the end of, you know, kind of you shared your story there, and at the end you said, I hold myself accountable, you know, and I make sure that I'm, you know, essentially what I'm reading in there is that you essentially make sure you're doing your best to kind of live up to those standards and, you know, those things. And so let's kind of move into talking about what that is. You know, what does high performance mean? And yeah, what all goes into that? I know, it's a large topic.
So. No, that's great. No, I think my opinion of a high performance is really, I had to go through a recalibration, a reinvention of who I was, and really just raising the standard, raising the bar. But it also was rebuilding my confidence, my self-esteem, and really setting out attainable and realistic goals that, you know, I was the kind of person that was focusing on the results. I truly believe as a high performer, you have to learn how to love the process and be in the, I call it being in the game every single day, and challenging yourself to not focus on the results. Because I feel like so much of us, we're either stuck or we're trying to get somewhere, but we're focusing on that result, and we're trying to go to the end. And then it causes a lot of frustration, then lack of self-esteem, lack of confidence, and then it starts limiting beliefs. So it snowballs. And so what I like to create is that reconnection with a person, a little similar to what I went through, but it's just strategy wise. So it's really having the willingness to commit, to be consistent each and every day. And then you create a new roadmap. And then it's all about your daily habits. Like what I think a high performer is, and working towards creating a healthy routine that supports that process and getting to that end goal.
Absolutely. So I love those different thoughts. I mean, kind of what I get from that, it's like, you have a goal, you have something you want to achieve. I mean, I think that anything in life, obviously you need to know where you want to go. What's that classic saying? It's like Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you want to go, then it doesn't really matter where you go. So obviously, you identify that beginning goal, and then it is raising those standards and doing what it takes to get there. So I like that. I think that that's really cool. And so I guess if you could give kind of, I don't know if that's, too much, but if you kind of like outline like kind of the, maybe, some steps to high performance, like what are, maybe like 3 steps or like 3 things people could do to up their performance in life.
Yeah, I think the first 3 steps that I constantly talk about each and every day for myself is just your morning routine, right? So I think really it starts there, what you do. And I'm a big believer in how you do anything is how you do everything. And if
Yes.
you can create those daily habits, that foundation. So I wake up every day at 3:30 a.m. and I have my specific routine with meditation and gym and running. And it's really about self-care. And I really truly believe if you're high performance and you really don't understand about self-care, that's like step one. Step one is all about self-care. I always refer back to the plane. When you're going through and you're sitting on the plane, they talk about the oxygen mask, dropping down, and what you have to do first is what you put it on yourself first. You take the oxygen so you can help save the kids or somebody else around you. So it's all about you first and taking care of yourself. I believe that's the true that's the beginning of becoming a high performer and again, raising that standard. So it does, I know from experience, it does get you a little bit uncomfortable. I haven't always woken up at 3:30 a.m. It was 4, and then, sometimes I'm running through the nights or something, but I set that standard because it works best for me, right? So it's figuring out what works best for that individual. And my job as a coach is to meet that person where they are. And then we get into the creation piece. But I really think the second piece of that was having the willingness, right? So I talk a lot about having the willingness, and most of my clients, or when I'm speaking on stage, I talk a lot about the willingness to start preparing yourself to get to that high performance. And it's not about like, okay, I'm waking up every single day and I'm a high performer, but you can have the confidence, you can have the attitude of a high performer. That's what really takes you up. And you start to understand those gains, and you start doing the things that you set out to do, like you want to do, like eating healthier, or not drinking, or choosing a healthier lifestyle. And I think a lot of people that I come across, and I can relate to this because I didn't have a healthy lifestyle, but now I try to create a healthy lifestyle each and every day, and I take it day by day. And I feel that's like a huge part of that recalibration, like I was talking about before, is becoming a high performer. And it's all about, I talk a lot about starting at the bottom of the mountain and working your way up to the peak and summiting. And then, obviously when you summit, what do you have to do? You have to come back down. So I talk about like being really efficient with getting to the top of those peaks and those summits. And that draws a line of, okay, how are you going to do that? It's about being consistent. So if you want to go somewhere and get to those results, you get to the top of the mountain, it's all about building that consistency and having that commitment to get there, right? Because I truly believe if you have the willingness, you're committed, and you have consistency, you're capable of doing anything. And it's about retraining the mind and the body. And that's where I talk a little bit about spirituality and meditation, and for how to reset, because that's why I always talk about my childhood, because my childhood had left me a lot of like scars, and it came through me all the way up to my adulthood. That was really would set off things, it would trigger things. And so I do a lot of deep work around like the childhood, and I'm going through a lot of work with my coach around the childhood. So I don't take anybody any deeper or talk about anything that I don't know about or haven't experienced myself. But that was a really hard time for me. I was on medication for 27 years of my life, and having grown-ups from an early age telling you can't do something, you need to take this, and feeling different. I was very much an introvert, and was very ashamed of who I was. And once I, hit that brick wall and had the willingness to commit and be consistent each and every day, I started discovering like, I'm pretty awesome. Like I love myself. And like that's, for me to ever say that before, it was like,
Yeah,
That's
that's a huge
just
deal, by the
just
way.
weird.
To step in and say that's a huge deal to be able to say that, because, just, in talking to people, when you can say that I'm actually pretty awesome, yeah, that's a milestone. So I love that, Chad. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's not, I don't want anybody to take it the wrong way, like I'm saying I'm awesome and like, I have this ego. It's not egotistical at all. It's about that transformation of somebody who was very sheltered on medication. I'm no longer on medication for the last 6 years, but somebody who had to really discover who he was and why I wanted to, end my life sometimes, why I was so depressed, why I had so much anxiety. And it was simply because I wasn't connected to who I was. And I truly believe that's a big part of becoming a high performer. And I say I'm a high performer only because I have the confidence and I simply choose to address that today and set my bar high and reach those goals and raising the standard each and every day. And that gives me confidence. That gives me a direction. And I talk a lot about as a high performer, it's not just like one direction. It is one direction, but it's also congruent with your relationship with self, personal development, financial, career, and your health. And those are 5 pillars that are really, really important and associated, I think, in everybody's life. And that's what my coach does for me. And I find it really just fascinating what the mind can do and how I can go through so much of a transformation in my life and self-discovery only because I had the willingness to just open that door just a little bit, right? And it wasn't like, okay, I'm all in. No, I had to take baby steps, and those baby steps turned into, efficient, like multiple steps. I always talk about when I'm in my 100-mile race, I take 243,000 steps average. And that's a lot of steps. But if I'm focusing on each step, or if I'm climbing 30,000 feet in a race, those are steps that are really important steps to get to that result, right? So again, drawing that energy back into being a lot more present, being a lot more aware of like, okay, I have control of this moment. I have nothing control of the steps I've already taken or the steps that are down the road. So it's a lot of just the mindfulness and that self-awareness. But going back to what I was saying before, I think it's truly comes, and I can say it now and it feels really powerful. I can say that, I love myself and it comes from my heart. That took a lot of work. That took a lot of barriers and walls to break down and buildings to break down. It was a lot of work, but that's why I really feel connected to the high performance piece, because that was one of my goals, is to become a high performer. And it's not about like you're just reaching a high performance goal, or you just reach a 100-mile race, or I'm working on a book, or you finish a book. And no, it's about, okay, you've accomplished that goal. You've focused on your commitment being consistent. Now you've really trained yourself to do something greater, and you keep building, and that's my definition. It's a long drawn out version of a high performer, but I truly feel connected to that.
Well, and I love that, because it is a big process. And I really liked what you said about the willingness to open the door just a little bit, to look inside and see what you see, because I think that that's probably one of the biggest things that stops us, or at least one of them. Maybe that's not it for everybody, but I do feel that having that willingness to open that door and to then look and to get that awareness. Because a lot of the times it's really not about getting in there and trashing yourself, and saying, oh my goodness, you horrible person, why did you do that? No, that never works. The self-blame, the self-hatred, that just doesn't work. There's no place for that. But rather taking an honest look, and just looking and saying, hey, here's what's going on. Well, where do I want to be? Okay, let's work on this. And so definitely it's that self-awareness. It's that willingness to get that self-awareness. And then I really love what you say about recalibrating, and so just recalibrating things, and working on it consistently. And also it's not about just, okay, I can run 100 miles. I'm done now. I'm good. I'm a high performer now. We're fine. We're done. We don't need to work anymore. Lifelong process, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. And I actually retired in 2018 from running professionally. But it was that moment where I took that transition and that mindset and those habits that I created out of running. I was running between 200 and 210 miles a week, taking me 60 to 65 hours a week. That was my job as a runner. And moving that into the professional world of a high performance coach and, you know, understanding the ins and outs of business and marketing and sitting in front of a computer and on these screens, like this wasn't me a few years ago. This was somebody who like had to learn how to type and understand. Like I remember buying my first laptop. So you have to be open to change, I guess is my bigger point there. There's so much change. And I feel like if us as humans can be and adapt to positive change, it becomes unlimited of where you can go and how you can get there. But I think going back to that high performance piece is having a strategic plan and really acquiring patience. That's something that I had to understand, like, especially just going and running taught me a lot about patience. I ran a lot of marathons before, and it was running with my ego and my watch and my time. Like, let's just get this done really quick. No, but when you're out even training for a 10-hour run or 12-hour run, that's just training. You have to understand patience. You have to understand like nutrition. There's all kinds of different things that I had to be open to changing. And that again comes back to that willingness. And I'm picking up, I'm just seeing that door like cracking open. I had this vision of me looking through like, okay, can I do this? And I just told myself like, yeah, just focus on that first step, doing it. It's not like you're going to wake up 2 or 3 days from now and you're going to be a professional athlete or a CEO or a high performer, or it takes work. It takes dedication and that commitment.
Absolutely. No, I think this is perfect. And it's true, you know, it's the willingness, you know, being patient, you know, consistently doing it. And yeah, you know, just committing to that. And I also think a lot too, you know, leaning into that discomfort, because it can be a painful process, you know, when you start to open that door and start to really take that honest, you know, look, it can bring up some things. And so I think that's also too, you know, I do just want to, you know, again, put in a plug for you, Chad, because I mean, folks, as you start to do this process, it's not easy. And so I would say that is why we also get coaches for ourselves. You know, I think you know, I'm impressed, Chad, you know, just saying that, yeah, you're working with a coach too. And so very briefly, I just want to mention that, folks, that, you know, be sure to get help on your journey. And so, you know, you want to make that plan so that then you have something to work with and then you go from there. And then, you know, to get that outside help too, just to kind of help you adjust as necessary, you know, to like kind of change, maybe change your roadmap as needed. You know, sometimes we have to make those adjustments. So be very mindful of that on your path. But Chad, this was phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, for sharing your experience, you know, and then sharing, you know, some of your, you know, I'd say well-earned insights here. You know, it's in the pursuit of our goals, you know, and then the pursuit of doing these great things that we learn a lot more perspective, you know, on other things, you know, like you were saying, you know, with running, you know, however many miles, you know, running that 10-hour race or something, what better way to learn about patience, you know, which is kind of a soft skill, you know, that's a little harder to teach maybe, but through the pursuit of, you know, other things, we learn these other habits. So anyway, but this was phenomenal. Thank you.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, if I could leave something with anybody who's out there listening is
please leave it, Chad. So folks, Chad, tell them how can they stay in touch with you? What can they, please leave it with them.
Sure. Yeah, you can find me at chadweller.com. It's the easiest way. You can set up an appointment, or all my social media stuff's there. But I just want to leave
the video, folks. I'll definitely add your website under there so they can find you.
Amazing. I always like to leave of just reminding ourselves that we're here and we have today, and just to remember to be kind to yourself, because a lot of things that we go through, we tend to talk to ourselves very poorly, and that creates and triggers a lot of different things. So just remember, I appreciate everybody listening today. Just remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others. And if you want to reach out, chadweller.com. And I just thank everybody for listening today.
I think that'd be phenomenal. Thank you so much, Chad. And that is a good way to finish. So be kind to yourselves, folks, and let's keep going. All right. Thanks for tuning in today, folks, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Leave us a comment with your thoughts, what you thought about it, and we'll talk to you again later. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.